Welcome to the Whaka 100 podcast, brought to you by Team CP. The Whaka 100, the largest and toughest one-day mountain bike marathon you'll ever do.
Turn on the weather for us. I'm just looking for some legs. Can you show me some legs? Everyone's running good, looking good too.
Now, let's send it over to Team CP.
Turn it up. Let's see how we can go. Turn it up. No stopping till we lose all control. Turn it up until we feel it down in our soul. Let's just see how high we can go.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Whaka 100 podcast. Tonight, brought to you by Tuned Rotorua and, of course, Team CP, your endurance coaching specialist. I'm Angus Petrie, and alongside me, as always, freshly back from Rotorua himself, Richard Greer.
Yeah. How you doing, Angus?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
It's doing good, thanks. Have you ridden your bike lately?
Yeah. Hey, mate, I did.
Good.
I rode it in the weekend. Not as much as you rode yours, but I did ride a cargo bike on the seat and actually in the front bucket in our
Yes, okay, good.
in the teams race at our cyclocross national champs that we had in the weekend. So we had a bit of a teams race and used the cargo bike. And then I rode my stigmata. I did in the beer hand up race, mate.
Good. Well, for the beer hand up race, yeah, specialist sort of category. Well done. And I probably need to follow that question up as have you still got all your skin based on those two rides that you did?
Yeah, no, we did have a few accidents in the cargo bike. It did get a bit of a hiding, but beer hand up was much. And I tell you what, the beer hand up is a real athlete's race. And I tell you why that is because the guy won it, Logan Horn, local Christchurch guy, who came third in the elite national CX race, men's national CX race the day before. He then got up and won the beer hand up race as well.
And where did you get in the beer hand up race, Angus?
Well, to be fair, I actually may have taken a few shortcuts because to me the lap was too long between beers. So sort of, may have just shortened it up a little bit to get an extra beer. And so
we'll call it a podium, shall we?
Oh, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Absolutely. But you, Richard, you have been to Rotorua.
Yes, we have. Yeah, annual trip, annual pilgrimage to Rotorua outside of the Whaka, obviously. So yeah, went up Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and come back Sunday. Last year we went up. There was a bunch of nasty weather that come in, so we sort of missed a day with that. But this year, yeah, we're riding bikes, giving it heaps. It was awesome. Downhill shuttles, day one, and we've got a key rule on our trip is that you're not allowed to injure yourself within the first half hour of riding because we don't want to call wives to say that sorry, but he's already injured and he's already out. So I managed to sneak through that, which is always a challenge when you do get your bike out of the bike bag and then just basically don't do any warm-up and then just start sending it down the hill, racing 10 other guys. So that was a win. And Tim Farmer, the race director of the Whaka 100, was awesome helping us out with those shuttles, rode with us. He organised a trip out to Western Okataina, which was a lake outside of Rotorua, outside of the forest, which was super cool. Bit of beer and pizza when we finished. And a big day in the forest as well, just riding lots of trails with also a few local athletes, Brad Scott, Anita Goodman, and Sarah Shanks that we coach as well. So good to catch up with some local athletes up there as well. So yeah, good fun. But the most dangerous piece of the weekend was actually was it the Friday afternoon luging, which got a little bit out of hand. And I apologise, Tim, for the skin that you lost coming down the luge on the last run.
Well, actually,
not good.
Not
good when you. Sorry, not good when you look behind and Tim Farmer is actually in the garden. He's catapulted out of his luge and he's lost his shoe and looking back going, lads, we're too old for this. What's going on?
Well, he was looking for the forest again, wasn't he?
He was.
He's so used to Rotorua forestry that he was looking at that. And actually, I'll tell you what could be dangerous is some shearing. And I'm not going to, but because I'm sure I can hold this as a bribery. I should have been there, mate. I should have been there, but unfortunately I had to commentate and MC the cyclocross national championships for the weekend, so I wasn't able to be there. But still involved in the group chat that was going on, and I'm not sure. Do you want me to share some photos or read some of the chat out there, mate? Or are we?
I think it's best on tour. It stays on tour. Is that the rules? I think something like that. Yeah, good fun. Great to get away, and that's I think the thing with Rotorua and. As yes, the mountain bike, but also just the destination. Great to go and do some luging, and just a great town to go and catch up with and have a weekend away. It was super cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, it is great to be back again, episode number 3 for season number 3 of the Whaka 100, mate. We're back all in the studio. We've got a couple of really great guests coming up, but just want to, tonight's sponsor, Tuned Rotorua. We are giving away, we're going to talk to Lewis Hamilton later on, and that's not McLaren Formula 1 driver Lewis Hamilton. Unfortunately, I was pretty G'd up about that actually there, to be fair. Not taking away from Lewis that we're going to talk to shortly. But Lewis is offering up from Tuned Rotorua a half-day one-on-one coaching clinic with himself based in Rotorua. So get on the old chat here. Send us a comment, send us a question, anything you like as we go along here, and we'll put you in the draw for a half-day one-on-one coaching clinic with Tuned Rotorua.
Yeah, that is a good prize, isn't it? That's very good. I know a lot of this is one of the biggest things with this race is that can I actually manage the downhill? Can I get downhill in one piece? And that's what Lewis and the team do there. And just to be able to confidently stand on the start line to say, I've got this, it's pretty cool to be able to ride the whole course and have some fun out there. So I'm super keen to hear what Lewis has to say.
Could you have done with some of that coaching in the weekend?
In the weekend, well, I probably only come off my bike about 3 times, but no major injuries, so that's not too bad, is it? Maybe wasn't pushing hard enough. Maybe in the first year though, like the year I rode with you, and there's that infamous photo of there was a bit of a swim happening, I think, something like that. Yeah. Doesn't have to come up again, but just everybody knows.
It's somewhere here, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to show that again.
Actually, we should ask Lewis later on. We might show Lewis again this photo. If you're listening as a podcast, we are putting up the famous photo of Richard in the water trap. Lewis might be able to give us some tips around how to get over this little feature later on.
Yeah, the commando roll wasn't good either. As I look at that, it should have dropped the shoulder and rolled out of it, really, rather than trying to run out of it.
Yeah, I think there was plenty of things you could have done there, mate, to be fair.
Could have done better.
lots of improvement to be had there, mate.
Yes. So we're going to talk to Lewis. He goes downhill fast and has been involved in mountain biking for a number of years. And we're also going to introduce you to first-time Whaka 100 competitor Laura Goldsworthy. Laura's swapping her bike and skill set as she goes from Enduro to XC in this year's 100K. So she's been training super hard, keen as, and really keen to get amongst it and see how good she can go. So looking forward to hearing Laura's story and why she's looking to do the Whaka 100 this time around.
Hey, we're just talking about the competition, winning the half-day coaching with Tuned Rotorua. Do we want to tell everybody who won last fortnight's prize?
Yes, we do. I just actually had that. It's Murray Fountain. So we had a Coda prize pack for Coda Sport Nutrition. So Murray Fountain, as a result of commenting and giving us some feedback, has won that prize. So Tim and the team from Whaka 100 will be sending that out to you in the post over the next couple of days. So well done, Murray.
Yeah, congratulations, Murray. Thank you very much for listening and watching and joining us along this Whaka 100 journey. Shall we throw Lewis into the section and see what he's been up to?
I think 100%. Yep.
Hey, Lewis, how you going?
Good, guys. How are you?
Really good. Lewis, thanks for joining us, first of all. Do you want to start off by just a bit of background? It's actually quite interesting in Rotorua on the weekend, looking around for a bit of a background, reading Mountain Bike magazine, sitting on the shelf and thumbing through it. And here's an article about you and your background, how you actually got into downhill racing. And correct me if I was wrong, but there was a World Cup, I think, in Rotorua. And as an 11-year-old, you were asked to be the sweeper riding down the trail at the end. And you actually only finished a minute behind the world champion that year. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was 11 years old and got the opportunity to be the sweeper. So obviously, it wasn't too much of a risk to throw me out there. But yeah, that's what sort of got me into the racing. That was sort of it was world champs in Rotorua. Yeah, 2006, and all the heroes came to town, and I couldn't believe it. You're on the shuttle bus going to the top of the track, and at the time, Steve Petrie was still is a massive legend, but sat next to you on the bus, and you're like, holy, this is what I want to do. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was it. From there, sort of had my eyes set on racing, and
you haven't really followed his footsteps, though, have you? Like, I'm sensing a lack
of drinking and the moustache, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sensing a wee lack there.
Yeah, I'm lacking the facial hair. For sure.
Yeah, well, my question was to be, how did you get into your mountain biking and specifically racing? But have we already answered that, or is there more to the story there?
No, I got into my dad or my parents. They moved from the UK to Rotorua when I was 1, so I was born over there. And Dad, he was a diesel mechanic and got a job in a workshop actually in Waipa. And then after that, he joined the police, and a few of his workmates dragged him out riding. And then before you know it, me and my younger brother Connor, we had warehouse bikes that kept breaking on us every 5 minutes, and would be building jumps everywhere we could. And then, we got dragged out into the forest, and at that time there was probably only 5 or 6 tracks that you could pick from. And if you're feeling fit, you could probably ride them all in about 2 hours. But that's how we sort of got into it, and kept at it. And as kids, we didn't really like climbing the hills, so we got kind of fixated on the downhill. And part of that was probably the bikes. We were trying to pedal up these hills as well. But from there got, I guess, fixed on sort of downhill racing. When I was old enough, started doing some club races, which led to international eventually, through national and international. So went through the hoops.
Awesome.
And I guess part of that is how I've what I've learned today to be able to provide some coaching to a lot of riders as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So you've traveled all over the world, riding and racing. Is there a performance out there that you're most proud of?
I think with international racing, it was always like on paper, some of the results that I got, they didn't really look that flash, but the performance side of things in terms of how I felt and how I rode, even qualifying was hard enough to be able to race the finals. But Fort William, that was always that always treated me well, and it was a slightly longer, rougher track. But it always seemed to qualify and end up in the finals at Fort William. But probably one performance that is in the back of my mind most, in terms of international racing was it was at Fort William. There was a massive storm came through on qualifying day, and they had to cancel it. They couldn't actually run the gondolas.
Mm-hmm.
So qualifying and race was all in one day. And by the end of the day, you'd have to just check your arms were still attached to you and your legs. It was just brutal.
Well, you've obviously spent a bit of time overseas, but you've just been over to the Worlds, and you've been a part of the Kiwi campaign, which was an absolute outstanding campaign by our Kiwis at the Worlds. What was your part? Why were you there, and what emphasis were you putting in there for them?
Yes, I had the opportunity to go over to Worlds as the downhill manager, and then also assist with some coaching or on-track coaching at the cross country. So it was mainly being on ground support for the junior riders that aren't on factory teams. And there was about 6 or 7 privateers that went to race for New Zealand. So that was sort of my role, helping out where I could without getting in the way.
Yeah,
it must have been pretty special to have been there to see that result, be a part of that. I assume the hype was pretty good in the Kiwi camp as we rolled result after result.
Oh, it was amazing. A super awesome campaign to be a part of, and just proud to be a Kiwi when you stood there and see especially the girls clean the podium. And I think that surprised them as well. I mean, the level that they're riding to back home, you can only compare at a national stage, but getting them on the international stage and seeing where speed takes them has definitely been an eye opener.
Yeah, good stuff. So, Lewis, you've obviously competed to a high level yourself, but there's one thing of actually competing, but then and having the skills to be able to ride downhill fast and well. It's another thing trying to illustrate and get other people to understand that and relate that to their riding. Tell us, how did you get involved in coaching mountain bikers for a start?
So, a bit of a funny story how I got into it. Growing up, I never really had any like formal coaching from anybody, but there was one day I went for I got given a skills clinic voucher with MTB Skills, who James Doddsy was running at the time, and I remember turning up I think I might have only been like 9 or 10, and a bunch of other adults there, and I think they were like, oh no, this kid's not going to fit in. So Doddsy took me in. All we did was skids and drifts on the gravel road, and to be honest, I probably learned more than the adults did that day. But I'd say 6 or 7 years ago, I got asked by a couple of junior riders or local riders if I'd go out and help them just with a few tips and just watch over what they're doing. And I thought, this would be a cool way to sort of give back to the community and, help these kids out. They've asked me to, so you wouldn't say no. So I went out and I said, well, what do you want to learn, or what do you want to try and improve? And they were like, oh, jumps and cornering. And I thought, all right, we'll go find some jumps and corners. And anyway, we got to these jumps, and I was like, well, just show me what you've got. Just ride it a few times, and I'll watch what you're doing. And so they did. They pushed up and rode these corners, rode these jumps, and I was kind of stood on the side of the track going, what am I actually looking for? Or what are they, what are they actually doing?
Yep.
And it kind of made me realize, I was like, well, hang on a minute. I can see there's room to improve, but I don't actually know what it is that they can do or how I can explain it to them.
Yep.
And then the next probably 30 minutes, I was stood on the side of the track, splurring all these words and actually hurting my brain in terms of how I could help these kids. And I probably learned more that day as well. And it just made me realize that to that point, I hadn't really thought about how I rode. I just learned to do it.
Yeah.
But teaching people just to do it is not the way to go. So that kind of started like a big brainstorm for me and my partner. We've just chatted about things on, how we sort of could understand our riding. And one thing I was quite big on was being able to like brainstorm my own technique and how I rode a bike. I watched all these YouTube videos, and some parts of it that kind of made sense, but there was a lot of parts that I knew there was more to it. Yeah. And that was probably, all falls back to the amount of riding and racing in different locations and the amount of time I spent on a bike. But
so you managed to obviously teach those kids and then managed to turn it into a business, which how good is turning something that you love to do into a business? What about every time somebody pulls a helmet on, is there like a couple of skills that are just the basic essentials that everybody should know and remember when they pull a helmet on?
I think the biggest skill of like riding is just probably going back to what I just said, and it's just being aware of what you're doing. Like it's really hard to practice something that you don't know what you don't know. So thinking about something while you're riding it's actually a really different way of riding, if you know what I mean. Like it's I think a lot of the time, depending on what the rider's after, it's just as nice to go out in the forest and not have anything to think about. But in terms of, you know, an event or training or improving or progressing, you've got to be able to ride conscious. And yeah, Sorry, you're right.
I was just going to say Rotorua is, you know, the Whaka 100. That's what we're gearing ourselves towards here. It's one of those forests that's unforgiving and continues to go on and on. Those that don't have access to the likes of the forest up there in Rotorua, how does one train or prepare for that, or how would you describe the technicality of what's inside the Whaka 100?
I guess there's so much in the Whaka that there's so much in the Whaka that, or like just trails in general, that I think no matter what facilities you've got, you can never underestimate it. But I think for anyone that hasn't had access to the forest or the trails that the Whaka course goes through, like riding the course even on the day, like just give yourself space to read what's in front of you. Following a rider can be a good and bad thing depending on what they're doing. So know your limits and just give yourself the space to obviously see what's coming.
Yeah, nice. Being like one of the things with there's a few descents there in Whaka that just go on and on and on forever, and part of riding your bike in an XC race is actually being able to recover on the descent, isn't it? So then you can actually carry on for the uphill and feel good and have the energy for the next climb. What tips would you give people in terms of making sure that they are not just bombing the downhill, but actually get to the downhill in one piece and ready to put the energy into the uphill?
Yeah, I think with recovering for a descent, it just makes you want to be able to recover for a descent so that not only you can focus on getting through the descent trail, but also save yourself for that next climb. But I think a big key to recovering fast on a descent is just knowing what your legs are doing,
right?
And how to use them smart on a descent. Obviously, you've got you've got to have so much technique to be able to ride down safely and well, but you've also got to be efficient with, saving your legs for the next climb.
Is it about relaxing? Is that the key bit? And I guess it comes back to confidence and skills, doesn't it? The more relaxed you can be, the less energy you're going to be able to have to expend. And I guess it's sort of relaxing. And is it also about actually just trusting your bike? Like your bike generally will be able to soak up a bunch of the hits and the impacts along the way. But the more relaxed I am, the less hits I get and the more I can flow over the trail.
Yeah, definitely. I guess a good bike setup for a descent can be, it can make all the difference really. You want to be able to trust your bike underneath you, and if it's not trustworthy with a bad setup, then I think that's the first place to obviously look at. And then, yeah, as you said, Richard, just staying relaxed. It's sometimes easier said than done, but knowing what you're doing and knowing how to relax is a big key to, not just telling yourself, "Oh, just relax after that massive climb."
Yeah.
There's a couple of really synonymous trails inside the Whaka 100, and one of those is probably Hot Cross Buns. It's probably caught a few people out along the way. The last rooty steps and things that are in there. What advice do you give to this? That's a grade 4 piece of trail, and we often do enter some of the entrants are not always grade 4 technically, right? So there's a few bits there. Apart from staying loose and relaxed and looking, is there anything else? And getting off and walking. How else would you attack it for the first time?
I guess it's such an iconic piece of track, and it's obviously I think a lot of people know what section you're actually talking about, but knowing your line choice through there, I think, is the key to, being able to ride it well. And visually, when you stop and look at that section, it does look a lot worse than it rides. And I think that's sort of the cool part about it, is like once you know where to go, it actually makes it sort of less to worry about. And especially through the Whaka 100, like, leading into that trail, there might be a section of trail where you're constantly thinking about, oh, that section's coming up, and you start worrying about it, and it kind of makes you ride the rest of the trail not how you usually would either. So I think that worry of, like I guess going back to just knowing where your line is and being able to come into a section and know where you're going.
What about the old speed is your friend? Sorry, Richard, what about the old speed is your friend? Is that actually is that a myth, or is that actually for real?
I don't know. I think in some cases it can be. It can go pear-shaped a lot of the time as well, but it also depends on, again, going back to, having enough momentum through sections to like hold your line, but then not absolutely gunning it where you don't know where your tires are.
Yeah. And actually, just while we talk about it, just looking at some questions, we've got plenty of questions just flowing in the box there, and there's a really good one here. We're talking about downhill, but I know you teach not just downhill, that full technical skills on how to ride them out. What about riding up over the tree roots? So what's the best technique when you sort of got to go up and over the tree roots?
I wouldn't say uphill is my strongest point, but I've done a fair share of it. So I'd say, this might sound really weird, but picking your line for your back wheel, not your front one. It sounds really weird because I guess your front wheel is always in front of you, but keeping your grip on your back wheel and not spinning up on, tree roots or slippery spots, it's a big part of keeping your momentum up the hill. And I'm sure we're all guilty of feeling a good spin on a tree root and coming to a dead stop. It does make a bit of a pause to your climb, and sometimes in worst cases affects others as well. So picking lines for your back wheel and keeping your grip so you can keep pedaling.
Yeah, nice. So one thing you've said there, like just thinking about tree roots, because tree roots are a big part of Whaka, aren't they? Is just actually get off and have a look, like session that particular trail a few times. Don't just ride down it blind. Actually have a look at it and sort of pick your line and look at it from different angles. And if you've got someone else to ride with, like look at it together and ride, and then give each other feedback and things, is a great way to kind of suss out these trails bit by bit.
Yeah, for sure. I think sessioning is one of these things that a lot of people, they kind of know about, but don't take the time to do it as much. And the benefits of doing it are huge. It's, even being able to stop and look at a piece of trail. And I think half the time you stop and look at stuff, you start recognizing all these other bits of, tree roots or holes. And you're like, well, there might be so many other options to keep your line smoother or, avoid the slipping. And
if I just went around that bit, then I don't even have to go through this piece, for example, and actually have a look. It was interesting on the weekend I rode behind one of the guys I'm coaching, Brad Scott, who's a local, and down some of the tree rooty sections before that piece on hot cross buns. I had the best ride I'd ever done, because usually I just bombed down it because I've never really looked at it properly. But following a guy that actually knows where he's going, it was heaps easier. It was much smoother that time. So get out and have a play with it, I think, is the key thing around a whole bunch of these trails. What about that creek crossing at the end? It's tough when you're tired and beaten up. And it's a good place to spectate if you want to look at a little bit of carnage. Any advice for riders for that particular section? I've got my piece of advice, but keen to hear from someone that actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess it's another iconic part of the Whaka, I think, is the creek crossing. And depending on how hot of a day it is, you might want to end up in it, or you might want to get through it and carry on to the finish. But I guess that part of the course is, once you've done, you're on the home run by that point, and your fatigue levels, I think making a decision on, how you're going to feel by the time you get there, and being able to make your mind up, because when you get there, the crowd energy, it can make you feel like a superhero, and it's always pretty inspiring. So I guess regardless of the outcome, you want to do it in style. So whether that's
I like what you're saying there. Yeah, exactly. But again, go back to actually ideally have a practice beforehand, so you know your line, because it's getting in the line to drop in properly is the key bit, isn't it? So
so there's, I guess you've got the jump, you've got the ride through, and then the log, and then I think I saw a photo of you doing a karate kick through it earlier.
Yeah.
There's another.
That's right. I was just trying to clear the creek before Angus arrived.
Yeah. But
let's see. Go.
There's something like that again. That's
what was
a great thing.
Was that a jump, or a ride through, or a run?
It was actually a ride through. We did it in the prologue that year, the day before, and rode through it. And I was told there was a bit of a hole in the bottom, but it didn't seem to be a hole in the bottom. But after 1,000 odd people had been through it, turns out the second day there was a hole in the way. So found out about that.
Yeah, definitely makes a bit of a hole. I think if you are riding through it, you do want to try and get your front wheel across that water as far as possible.
Yeah, just lift the front wheel a bit. Absolutely. No, definitely learned on that one. So in terms of people that are getting to Rotorua a couple of days before they're going to do the Whaka 100 or the 50 or the miler or 25 or whatever, what advice would you give them in terms of riding the trails, in terms of key trails, I guess? So that's one question. My second question is, how do people get in touch with you to maybe, are you available to help people out in the days leading up to race day?
Yeah, for sure. It's the Whaka it's a big course, and it's probably easier to tell you what tracks aren't in it. But it's I think the scale of the forest is something that, I mean, being local, I've grown up with just knowing where the tracks are, and it can be a big forest to try and work your way around. So as you said, being able to go straight to some of the key sections of trail or descents, getting straight there. Obviously, I can show them around and give them tips along the way. But there's obviously trail maps throughout the forest as well, which I think is quite handy. It really gives you like a good, it just gives you good bearings on, where you are and what's around you. But yeah, wrecking the trails, I think like a good idea is like riding some of those descents in the sort of later stages of that course, being familiar with what's there, because again, just the fatigue, you want to be able to know what's coming and sort of, I guess, prepare yourself and give yourself less surprises as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess there's things like Trail Forks app on your phone, and then there's a Trail Maps app, which is specifically for Rotorua, that shows you exactly where you are, exactly where the trails are, and you could quite easily, even if you didn't know the forest, just pick the key ones that are mentioned as grade 4s or whatever and go, right, I'm going to go and try and have a play with that. But I guess the other side of it is also making sure you don't ski yourself either. It's good to know, but sometimes, but it's also, this whole mountain biking gig is a confidence number too, isn't it? Making sure that you just go and have a go, because sometimes, like on race day, you're not thinking about it. You've got others behind you, got others in front of you, kind of flowing lines and just kind of having a good time. So sometimes you can overthink it in the lead up too. So that will be important for people to make sure that they are still enjoying riding their bike when they're standing on the start line.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, Louis, it's been great to Sorry, mate. It's been great to have you on. Thank you very much for giving up your time and giving us a competition to give away, a prize to give away. Of course, don't forget, comment away here. Send us a message or a comment. Tell us you've enjoyed listening to Louis and all of his tips to win a half-day coaching with Louis in the Rotorua Forest. But, Louis, just before we go, I've got one more question for you. Old mate sent it in. 3 Hamilton lads in the family have done the Whaka 100 marathon. Who holds the fastest time?
Yeah, so, well, I'll say a funny story, but my dad, he decided that he would give it a crack, put in his sort of, from what I know, it was a bit of a motivator through winter to get him out on the bike, and I can't remember what year he exactly did it in, but anyway, once he'd finished it, I think a couple of years later, my brother decided that he'd give it a go. And then I think the conditions that Dad had were pretty muddy. And then, yeah, Connor, he pretty good conditions. And then once Connor finished, apparently it was a family tradition and we all had to do it. So I was next in line. And Connor wouldn't tell you this, but he had better conditions that day, that he went 4 minutes quicker than my Whaka 100 time. So
So does that mean you have to line up again this year? Is that what you're saying?
What's that, sorry?
Does that mean you have to line up again this year? Is that what you're saying?
Well, every year since, I've actually been the lead moto. So I think my times have got better and better since I last did it.
On the motorbike.
On the motorbike, yeah.
Yeah. Good job. That's awesome.
How good. Thanks for joining us, Louis. And like I said, hopefully everybody will get a big pool of people wanting to have a half-day session. I see some comments in there already of people saying, pick me. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for joining us, and we might catch you in Rotorua in October.
Awesome, guys. No, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well done. Cheers, Louis. How good. And if people are wanting to get in touch with Louis, the best way is jump on his website and get in touch with him and suss out when you're going to be in Rotorua, line up a session and just get out and ride your bike. He knows how to coach. He knows how to explain stuff. And the best way to do that is actually getting out on your bike with him, riding and as we talked about, sessioning those trails and getting those corners, getting those tree routes, having fun on your bike. And it does equal more fun, doesn't it, when you can ride down these trails without having to get off and walk.
Oh, 100%. So that's just simply tunedrotorua.co.nz is Lewis's website there. But you're absolutely right. The skills, if you've got some mountain bike skills and that downhill's coming easy, you can relax easy, you can recover more. It's not as fatiguing. If you are death gripping those handlebars and butt clenching that seat the whole way down, it's pretty taxing, isn't it? It's
really is.
Actually, just on seats, my cross-country bike still hanging on the wall here to this day still does not have a dropper post in it. And I've managed to get away with, and done the Whaka a couple of times with no dropper post, but I swear black and blue nowadays that if I ever go back to Whaka, that the one thing I'll do is put a dropper post in that bike.
I totally agree. The first year that we did it, I did not have a dropper post. It was like riding a pogo stick down off some of those sort of drop-offs and things like that, and scared myself quite a lot. But with the dropper post, like I would give away rear suspension and have a dropper post. Like they make that much difference to be able to ride your bike and get your body in the right position as you're riding across those trails. I think it's an absolute must when you're riding Whaka, and you're going to have a bigger smile on your face and enjoy yourself more because of it.
Totally. And actually, Lewis's comment about space, giving yourself space when you're following someone, is actually a really good one too. You're right. Really, it is actually easier to follow somebody, and especially if it's nice flowy stuff. But when it gets techie, there's a couple of things there. One, the person in front of you might have more skills than you do, so they may hit it harder or know a better way around it. If you're seeing it for the first time, you really want to be able to see the lead and the run into that. Two, if the one in front of you makes a small mistake and stalls you, then there's a really good chance your OTB or you're, going to have something
Landing on
bad
top of them,
go on.
basically.
Yeah. Over top of them. So do give a bit of space in there as you go along there. So
yeah, for sure. I just got a comment that come up here: 9 weeks to get your dropper post sorted from the Whaka 100 mountain bike marathon people. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. 9 weeks. Okay, hook us up. Hey, actually, speaking of Whaka and things that are going on, mate.
Yes.
Now, it's such a popular event. There's thousands of people going. There's really one way that everybody gets there, and that's by aeroplane. Now, unfortunately, the Air New Zealand are the only ones that fly into Rotorua there, basically. And it is a known fact that they do have a capacity issue when it comes to putting bikes on planes. So this year there is an opportunity out there, and you do need to get in touch with the Whaka 100. You do need to get in touch with Tim Farmer, but they are looking at providing a road freight option for your bike. So leaving Christchurch, because there's a lot of South Islanders that'll go up and they'll fly out of Christchurch to get there. So there is going to potentially be a road freight option to drop your bike off, and it will be delivered to the Christchurch. The Auckland. Can't even get that right. The Rotorua Airport, so that when you get off the plane, your bike will be there for you. So if you think you may want that service, and it is going to cost, but no different to putting oversized baggage on the plane anyway, and it means it won't get bumped when you go to fly on that last day out, get in touch with the Whaka 100 and see what they can do there for you.
Good, okay, because that was been a bit of a question on mine, because there's hundreds of people coming from the South Island, and obviously they all can't get on the plane at the same time, and it's not very much. It's quite a long run, isn't it? And we don't really want to be doing that. So if you've got your bike there, that'll definitely help.
Well, you stick with me. I might be able to hook you up there, mate.
Okay. It's not what you know, but who you know.
That's
good work.
Right.
Good work. Well done. Good stuff.
All right,
Let's have a chat to Laura. She's been sitting in the background there. Laura, tell us a little bit more about you. You've been riding about mountain bike for a few years. You've just signed up to this Whaka 100 cross-country gig. You've been used to riding downhill. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct. So this is my third year riding, and this is my third month riding cross-country. So I'm kind of coming from my coming from my base level endurance training, crossing over to the cross-country style of riding pretty much for the Whaka 100.
Okay, so how did you get into mountain biking in the first place 3 years ago? What was the motivation there?
Yeah, so I was working in events management. COVID came along. That was no longer an option. I'd already been setting myself up for about 10 years, knowing that working full-time and corporate wasn't going to be sustainable for me long-term. And so I just thought, well, it's time, quit my job and choose a sport. Rock climbing was my main sport, but I'd injured my back, and I just was struggling with that injury, and it wasn't rehabilitating, so I needed to switch. Skiing was my other main sport, but winter to winter, I just didn't know if I could do that.
Yeah.
So it was mountain biking, and I hadn't been mountain biking for long at all. One of my friends, he had been riding for ages. He got me into it, and then when I quit my job, I just committed, bought an expensive bike, and thought, well, if I've spent the money, then I guess I've got to do the thing.
Yeah, and you've been Enduro has been your sort of first thing you've really got stuck into. So you love a bit of downhill, from what Lewis has been talking about.
I do love a bit of downhill. Enduro was kind of the easiest for me to test waters, to see, hey, do I like pedaling? Do I like downhill? And then I decided that I only liked downhill, and I never wanted to pedal in my whole entire life. So then I did Crankworks. So I did Crankworks in Rotorua, and I won all the open category events, and then was lucky enough to race the invitational pump track as well, and qualified for that. So that took a huge mental toll, just learning how to ride downhill, how to race downhill, how the start systems work. And I thought it'd just be nice to have a bit of break over winter. So Gabby Buchanan said, hey, I've got an XC bike that happens to be your size. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
I had the spare cash, so I guess it happened.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, I've got the bike, I better go ride it. And then I figured out I could keep up with all the girls. They were too fun. So I thought, well, okay, I need to get faster at going up hills. So I signed up for the Highlander again because my friends were doing it and I wanted to do it. actually managed to place okay, probably out of sheer stubbornness. And thought, okay, right, well, let's do this. Let's spend 3 months getting, fit, training properly, and then hopefully by the end of it, I might be able to keep up with the girls a little bit and enjoy myself a bit more on the XC bike and enjoy that mental break from downhill as well.
Good stuff. Love a bit of stubbornness. That's very important, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's your goal for the event in 9 weeks' time?
Yeah, so that's something I need to have a chat with my coach about. It's really hard to judge because I've only been racing, training XC with a focus to race for 3 months, which doesn't give us a lot of data on how fast I am going to be able to race it. I would like to finish the 100 kilometers and just feel good about how I've done. I want to know that I've trained as hard as I could train, that I've pushed as hard as I can train. And I think regardless of what time comes out the other end, so long as I know I've worked as hard as I can, I'll be happy with that.
And done your best, yeah, that's right. Sit back at the end and reflect on the job well done, and I've left it all out there on the track.
Exactly, and you can't ask anything more of yourself, so you can't be disappointed if you've mentally and physically done everything you can. Nice.
What's the toughest thing of your training so far? What's been the hardest bit?
Oh, you know what? Zone 3 rides. So I don't know if people know these zones were a new thing to me starting XC. So apparently there's like zone 2, which is your low intensity, just like hanging out with your mates, you can talk through it, it's all chill, which is what I've been doing for Enduro, right? I've been doing zone 2 all day, every day for 2 years. Zone 5 is you're in high intensity, pushing out the watts, like absolutely gasping. And I can get that, let's go sweat for a bit. Zone 3 is kind of in the middle, and I find it quite boring. So that's been the hardest part, is really understanding when I need to just be in this medium space of, I've got a good playlist now, I've got a podcast I listen to, it's getting easier, but surprisingly, it's just been...
It's called the Team CP podcast, is it?
Definitely, I just have the Whaka 100 podcast playing.
There you go. Well done.
I know what you should do is listen to our coast to coast ones or something, and then next minute you'll be down that road too.
No, don't get me started.
No, that's good. But I guess that's what that's doing, and what your coach is doing there is looking at, you're not going to ride zone 2 all day. You're not going to be able to sustain zone 5 all day. So sort of you're going to be in that sort of I'm working hard situation, but I can't work too hard for it. So building up to actually simulate the event is what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what he recognises, is that if I'm having trouble with these zone 3s staying in a zone 3, that's something that I need to practice more and kind of resist that urge to really burn out, because 100 kilometres is obviously a huge distance.
Yeah. The bottom lip can come out if you do too much zone 5 early on. That's not good. What's your favourite trail and why?
Honestly, this is a hard one because it's just whatever trail I rode last.
Yeah.
I love riding. I really am happy wherever I am. I guess the one that I'm enjoying working on at the moment is As You Do, which is a technical uphill. All of the downhills for me are quite comfortable. There's nothing really that is kind of weighing on my mind. But As You Do is a technical uphill trail, is something I'm really finding a challenge at the moment, and am doing some of that sessioning of going out following some of those more experienced cross-country riders, looking at their line choice, looking at their body positions, and just, I'm really enjoying that at the moment. Yeah,
good. And as Louis said, try and figure out where your back wheel is going to be as you ride uphill. That's a good little tip, wasn't it? So I
actually wrote that down.
Yeah, that's great. And like you're a Rotorua local, get to ride at the trails on a regular basis. Have you got tips for others here that are listening to this podcast and tuning up? They won't have ridden any of these trails before, and it'll be brand new to them. What tips have you got in terms of the trails and the network and what people are going to come up against on race day?
I think just to have faith in your abilities. I mean, if you've ridden grade 4s before elsewhere, you can ride grade 4s here in Rotorua, and being relaxed is going to allow you to move through those trails the way that you usually ride. There's nothing worse than dropping into a trail and being stiff and worried, because the end result is it feels a lot harder than it is. And I think the nice thing with a cross-country race is you get plenty of time to warm up. By the time you've got to your downhill, you've kind of settled into your rhythm, and I do feel a little bit more prepared than compared to an enduro, where sometimes you've got to pedal up, but you are kind of dropping straight into it.
What about on a technical side? suspension wise, like difference? Do you're blanking out there? But like, enduro, you've probably ridden your bike quite, soft and responsive and things. But on an XC bike, have you found that quite different? Do you muck with your suspension? Have you tried to find a good downhill balance out of it?
Yeah,
Or do you just ride
a suspension is a constant bane of my existence, really. I don't understand it. I'm not very good at technical data. I know when it feels wrong, but my ability to get it right sometimes is quite limited. So the cross country bikes are nice and simple. 100 mil at the back, 90 mil at the front for me. I just have it quite stiff and go downhills fast. My enduro is a bit more of a complicated beast that I am still working on getting just right for me.
Yep. And I guess ideally it's something that you do adjust and change depending on the trail that you're coming up against. And that's part of the why you haven't settled on it exactly, because the trail changes.
I mean, some of the riders that I spend time with have been riding for 30 years and they're still there changing suspension settings and wondering if there's going to be. So I don't know if it ever ends, really.
You'll probably find that actually they turn it 3 clicks to the left and then they actually turn it 3 clicks to the right. No, make no adjustment, but make themselves look like the, fine tuning it. Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
It's an old trick. It's an old trick we used to do.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Hey, Laura, thanks so much for joining us. All the best for your training. Great to hear that you're just giving it heaps and enjoying riding your bike. And look forward to catching up with you on race day and go and give it heaps. And hopefully everything goes to plan.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Good job.
Thanks, Laura.
Cheers, Laura.
Yeah,
stuff.
It's quite a different. One very new to mountain biking in the scheme of things, anyway, right? But to come from enduro to try and fit into that XC thing, although we've all watched some of these downhill riders, and especially our Brooke McDonalds and those sort of guys here locally in Christchurch. We have Sam Blinkensop, obviously, who's a downhill rider, and he turns up to some cross country races, man, and they are incredibly fit. They are incredibly fit. But what you see is, like, if we go and race at the Horsell Quarry or do something like that, he's incredibly fit. He can go off the front, but they're just that next level again. When they come to the downhill, they're just floating across the blanket.
That's right. So easy, and the lines that they're riding and the way that they're moving across. You're like, how do you even do that? How's that even a thing? So go and play on your bike, I think, is the key bit, isn't it? Go and have some fun, and the more you relax, the more you trust your bike and the suspension, all those things, the more you look where you want to ride. I did find myself in our first downhill run off the shuttle bus thinking that those trees don't seem to move very much, do they? They look quite hard. So go where you want to go. Look where you want to go. That's really important.
Yeah. Did you find when you were back up there in the weekend that you remembered the trails? Have you been there enough now that you can remember them and you sort of know where you are?
Oh, absolutely. But probably, like, I've ridden there quite a lot now, but I'm still not great with what trail name is this. So probably the trouble is with, like, out there with Tim and out there with Anita and Brad and things that know where they're going, you kind of just follow the leader. But when you've got to get your map out, that's when you start kind of getting a bit more of a feel for the trail. So yeah, definitely recognize all the trails, because of, like, with the 100 miler last year, we did all of them and did all of them a few times. So yeah, love it. It's so good. And there's still more to explore. I think that's the one thing for me, is that I'd still go back there for a riding weekend because I didn't do them all. There's still more that I haven't ridden. So it's still got lots to offer. Amazing forest network that they've got up there. It's incredible.
It is. And we look forward to October to being there and seeing and some people riding, and some of us maybe or maybe not. We'll see. We'll see about that. But hey, look, thank you everybody. Thank you, Richard, for being here as always. Thanks to Team CP for helping support these podcasts. Of course, Whaka 100 for choosing us to represent them and bring you as much information as we can and tips and tricks. But to Tuned Rotorua, don't forget our great competition. Drop us a line, drop us a comment, and go in that draw to win a half-day coaching with Louis. There's, like I said, there's plenty of people wanting to do that. Other than that, Richard, what else can we do between now and then? Ride our bikes.
Get out there and ride your bike. Like, this is a key time, like 9 weeks away. The key thing that you want to be doing is simulating race day, simulating the intensity you're going to ride at, practicing your nutrition, get out there and actually sort of put yourself through your paces. And the key thing is that pacing as well. That's the thing that mucks you up on race day, is that often on a training day, we know we're going to do a long day, so we cruise away. On race day, we're fresh and we're fizzing, so we just pin it off the start line and we're happy as until I don't know, wherever you get to 30Ks, 40Ks, 50Ks, 60Ks in, and then the old cramp monster starts coming in there. So actually train as you want to race, I think, is the key bit. And what that might mean is riding with a couple of people that are quicker than you, that sort of push you a little bit earlier, so you know what you're up against. So go out there and simulate it, build up to that, but also making sure you have some fun on your bike, and you'll go well.
Exactly. Hey, you got your passport sorted?
The passport sorted, yeah, for Rotorua. Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh,
Yeah.
I heard there's a little bit of secret training going to happen outside of the country, mate.
Yeah, we've got a trip to China in a couple of weeks' time. So just been sitting in the visa office in the Chinese embassy today for an hour and a half or something like that, trying to get that sorted. So yes. So that's going to be exciting. So hopefully there's not too much weight loss that goes on there prior to Whaka.
So you'll have some worldly experience by the time you come back. Hey, that's cool, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, once again, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining, and we will be back with another Whaka 100 podcast very soon.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Angus, and thanks for everybody that for your comments, and we'll catch up soon.
You've been listening to the Whaka 100 podcast, brought to you by Team CP.
Skull. So much fun, lots of camaraderie and lots of laughs.
If you dig the show, make sure to like, rate, and review.
Let's just see how we can